Don't I have that too?
I don't waste breath on an enemy. No room for negative energy. Nah, nah, nah. I hear them talking, don't get to me. Karma gon' catch up eventually.
Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it!
Nah, nah, nah. I hear them talking, don't get to me. Karma gon' catch up eventually.
All right, everybody, welcome in to Load the Box. I am your host, Jordan Hawthorne. Excuse me while I adjust my mic. I'm joined, as always, by Jack Day. And although this is a football podcast, we are now going to spend the next half an hour yelling about our baseball teams because the Reds can't lay down a bunt to save their lives and literally win a playoff game. And the Twins are they just don't get it done in the playoffs. And Jack, I know you said last night, whenever you were Snapchatting me, that you weren't mad, you were just disappointed. And you also said, like, it just, like, nobody knows how it feels to be a Minnesota fan. So I'm actually going to go ahead really quickly. Shout out to Chase Dreams for the music. Follow us on Twitter at LTBVikings. One more time, at LTBVikings. You can follow Jack on Twitter at Jack_H_day. One more time, Jack_H as in Hudson_day. And then you can follow myself on Twitter at JHawthorne16. That's JHawthorne16, no E on Hawthorne. Jack, the floor is yours. Walk me through the misery of being a lifelong, like, Minnesota fan.
Yeah, I mean, I had a work call this afternoon as well where I kind of dumped this out there, but I really feel, too, that someone that's as emotionally invested into these teams as you are and myself, I have buddies that are as well. I have some buddies that are a lot bigger Twins fans than I am. I know it's more so the Vikings for me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't sting just as bad when the Twins, you think they have all the talent in the world. They do have all the talent in the world, and something it's similar. We've seen it with probably all four sports teams. Obviously, the Timberwolves really haven't been anything too serious of a competitor in my lifetime since the Kevin Garnett era. But other than that, it's been all just playoff misery throughout my life. I was texting one of my buddies, and I think really the only moment in my life in Minnesota sports history where I legit felt amazing, like close to a championship, other than University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs winning back-to-back national championships in hockey, which is where I attended college, which is still cool, obviously, and there's a lot of buzz around the university. But other than the Minneapolis Miracle, I really haven't had that true feeling, and that wasn't even to get to the Super Bowl. That was to get to the NFC Championship game, where I think the entire state thought that just because we won that game, it felt like it was destiny. We were going to play in front of everyone, and then you go into Philadelphia that next week and get absolutely embarrassed. But, of course, the Vikings had to score the first touchdown and just kind of keep your hearts in it and then finally just crush your dreams after that. But, yeah, it's frustrating. It's even more difficult to lose, I think, when it's a day game like that because there's other stuff going on. I'm trying to work as well, where someone that's as emotionally invested as myself into a team like that, it's not easy to try and work as well. And it's frustrating because there's guys like Nelson Cruz, who's been so fun to watch over the last 2 years, and his contract's up. Eddie Rosario, there's guys and their contracts are up, and I know the Vikings are going to be in a similar situation where they're kind of strapped for cash, whereas in baseball it doesn't matter as much, but I think you're going to see some guys walk. But don't want to be completely all negative and just complain all day. I did write an article this afternoon, Rashad Bateman, potential more than likely first-round draft pick out of the University of Minnesota, announced today on Twitter that he is officially opted back into the season. So we have a receiver that we can keep our eyes on, and it's obviously going to be one of the fan favorites talking about them when we get to draft season. But excited for the Big Ten to start up. I think it's really the only thing I had to look forward to now. So hopefully they don't completely crush my dreams and lose to Michigan in week 1.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like being a Minnesota sports fan kind of pays you back in the way that you would expect. Like, it seems like the general contract between a fan and a team is like, look, I will come to a couple of your games, I will buy a couple jerseys or hoodies or whatever in return. I expect you to play very well and, sign my favorite players to bigger contracts and things like that. And with Minnesota, it just seems like you said with the Timberwolves, you guys had Jimmy Butler for like a half second.
You had to do that too. You have to go in here and make it even one of the sports that I don't care about as much. You're still tugging on the heartstrings. I mean, you can't take it a little easy on me after the Twins have now lost 18 playoff games in a row. It sets the record by far, obviously, and it's one of those things. I think I texted you this today. It's like, I legitimately think you could take one of the worst teams in baseball and throw them into this playoff bracket, and even they're not going to lose 18 games in a row. It just seems physically impossible.
Yeah, it definitely, and I have I'm a Vikings fan. It's why we're in the middle of doing a Vikings show right now. But like, my friends and family have a very similar event where the Bengals have not won a playoff game in 25 to 30 years now, despite having all that talent, just 5 or 6 years ago. And their inability to win in the playoffs it's comical isn't the word, but it's almost like the whole, primetime Cousins shtick, where it's like, oh, Cousins can't win a game in primetime. And it's like, until you do it, until the Twins win a playoff game, or until the Bengals win a playoff game, or, until something happens in Minnesota that is really good, it just seems like there's this like cloud hanging over. But hey, at least the Vikings are still in contention for Trevor Lawrence, baby. All right, there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and it is that the Vikings are bad. But in all seriousness, go listen to the post-game show for that Titans game. I think me and Jack had a much different tone. We didn't spend the whole show talking about quarterbacks of the future. Instead, we talked about how this team looks like it has some life. And I don't want to be too optimistic, because I was very optimistic after week 1, and then the Colts game happened. And now we're playing a Texans team after, we're not going to be able to practice for most of the week because the Titans got COVID, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about later. But I have to say, expanded playoff format this year, Justin Jefferson, playing very well. Like, if the offense could get into shootouts, and if Zimmer just says, like, you know what, screw it, like, let's throw the ball, let's be that kind of a team, I think we could win 8 games and make the playoffs. That's what I wanted to open with tonight, but then, of course, all the baseball stuff happens. So, Jack, I'm going to actually throw that to you, and then, you can kind of follow it up after you're finished with talking about the Texans game. But, like, do you think the Vikings can still make the playoffs this year with the expanded format, or are you just completely like, this is going to be an 0-16 season, it's done, let's put a cap on it?
Well, I think it's difficult to speculate the rest of the season. I think you and I both had this team before the season as a playoff team, but I don't think either of us really truly believed that they were ready to get to that next level and get to the Super Bowl. So I could very well see this team still finishing 8-8, and like you said, with that expanded playoff spot, that could be enough. The first year we had Cousins, it was 8-7-1, I believe we finished. If you would have went back to that year and done what they're doing with the playoffs this year, the Vikings actually would have been a playoff team that year. So it's interesting, but I don't see what you just said happening. I don't think Mike Zimmer is going to completely just abandon his defense, and he's not going to abandon the run. We're going to still be giving the ball to Dalvin Cook, because I think that's just what makes this team go around, if you will. I think you need to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. I feel like I've said that sentence 50 times in the last week and leading up to last week as well. We just weren't doing a good job at doing that. And then you go out and you do that. You set an NFL record and have, for the first time in NFL history, you have a wide receiver and a running back both go for over 175 yards. And you put up 30 points and you still come out in the loss column. It's bizarre, because you go back 2-3 years ago and you tell me that would happen, and the Vikings put up 30 points, I would have put my life savings down that the Vikings won that game, because the Vikings used to be able to play defense. Granted, they're very banged up, but it makes me nervous going into Houston as well. They have some fans that are going to be in attendance. I want to say 15, 20,000. It's something like that. So it's going to feel more like an away game. And then you haven't been able to get very much of a pass rush. You haven't been able to stuff the run by any means. And I think I'm excited to watch David Johnson in this game because he was so fun to watch that year. He was so dominant for the Cardinals. I still think he has a little bit of gas left in the tank, which is unfortunate for the Vikings because I could see the Texans coming out in top of this one. Deshaun Watson is a top 5, top 6 quarterback in the entire NFL, and his mobility when going back to his time at Clemson, it was just so fun watching him play the game of football, and it's something that Vikings fans have really wanted since we've gotten Kirk Cousins. You can say what you want about Kirk Cousins. I still have faith that we can win with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, but he's not anywhere near the mobility level of a guy like Deshaun Watson. So I'm excited to watch him play. Obviously, the big news, or not big news anymore, but they don't have DeAndre Hopkins anymore, which makes me feel a little bit better about this game because I really don't know which cornerback on our roster would have been able to have a day with DeAndre Hopkins. I think it could have gotten ugly. And, I don't think their roster is that bad by any means. Obviously, you lose DeAndre Hopkins, and it's going to make you a little bit worse. But they still have, Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, and Will Fuller. That is a lot of speed out at the wide receiver position, and I'm intrigued to see how our cornerbacks can match up with that if we're not able to get any pressure to Deshaun Watson because, like I just said, he can kill you with his legs, and then if he gets outside that pocket, he's going to keep his eyes down the field as well. So I feel like I just had another train of thought that I was going to mention, but I'm kind of spacing out. Oh, yeah. The good news is getting the Vikings injury report up here. It sounds like Cameron Dantzler has posted on his Instagram throughout the week. I don't think they practiced today, but they still have to release the injury report, so it's kind of speculation. And I think they will be back at the facility tomorrow, it was announced, because they didn't have any COVID or positive COVID cases come back. But Cameron Dantzler has announced that he plans on playing, it sounds like. Obviously, I don't think it's fully his choice, but if the Vikings were to practice today, they would not have had Mike Hughes, and they would not have had Chris Boyd, so that's another 2 cornerbacks and roster position that obviously doesn't have too much depth, but I am excited to get Cameron Dantzler back. I think it'll be fun to see Cameron Dantzler and hopefully Jeff Gladney both on the field at the same time. And kind of wrapping up, I feel like I'm all over the place. I'm sorry for that. It's just where my where my mind is at today. I'm not. I told Jordan this before the show. I'm not all there with how the Twins game went or how the last 2 Twins games went, but. Good news for Vikings fans and bad news for Vikings fans. The PFF rankings came out, and I wrote an article for KFan on this morning as well. They had the top PFF players of Week 3. There was 2 that were tied with the exact same ranking. Good news for Vikings fans is Justin Jefferson was the highest rated player in the NFL in Week 3. Bad news, he was tied with former Vikings cornerback Xavier Rhodes, who had 2 interceptions and a touchdown for the Colts. Granted, they were playing the Jets, but the Vikings sure could use a little bit more of a veteran presence in that cornerback room. Obviously, let him walk this offseason, but I have nothing but respect for Xavier Rhodes. He gave us one of the most fun seasons to watch in Vikings history, where he was shutting down Devontae Adams, Odell, Mike Evans, and making them have fits. So I still have all the respect in the world for him, but hoping that some of these younger corners can get to that level under Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, it's definitely – so me saying the whole playoff thing is definitely me trying to be optimistic in a time where – I feel like we have to counterbalance each other, and usually I'm doom and gloom, and this Twins thing, plus the Vikings being 0-3 for the first time in like 7 years, has definitely taken a toll on you. So I'm going to take it upon myself to be like hey, don't worry, guys, everything's fine while, the house is burning down. But I don't want to talk too much about it. I will say, so Jack can't see me when we are coding this. While you were going, on your like, tangent isn't the word, but while you were, going through the injury report and everything and talking about the Houston game, my cat jumped into my lap. So first appearance from an animal on Load the Box. That was fun.
That's actually funny because I have a barricade up and my dog was peeking his head over the corner. I was like, please do not. He's never found out how to get through it, but I was like, please do not let this be the time where he figures out how to jump over that.
Right. So I try and close my dough, but it's weird. It's like the dough that it closes, but it doesn't have like a latch. I just did the like finger and whole thing, and that looks super inappropriate. But like it doesn't have like the latch part that lets it close all the way. But anyway, looking ahead to Houston, as we're getting off on just like a completely different snowballing thing. Deshaun Watson is going to be very tough to handle. And David Johnson's very good at running the ball. I think Bill O'Brien made it clear when he traded away whenever he traded away DeAndre Hopkins, that they wanted to run the ball. They weren't going to invest money in big-name wide receivers. They have Deshaun Watson. Hopefully he can elevate, bad wide receivers in the way that Aaron Rodgers does, and he can make them a better passing attack. They get David Johnson, who will help them run the ball. And then they want to play defense. I don't think Bill O'Brien wants to be this air raid offense like Arizona is or like Cincinnati's becoming. So Bill O'Brien's going to try and establish the run early. I think the Vikings need to take David Johnson just as seriously as we took Derrick Henry last week, because I think the offensive philosophy is going to go through him. I think we have to make sure that we don't let Houston establish that one game, or else we're going to see exactly what we saw the first 2 weeks of the season, where the offense only gets on the field for 20 minutes, and when they are on the field, they either punt or get safetied. So hopefully the offense comes out. I'd love to see Justin Jefferson just ride this wave. I'd love to see him put together a really good stretch of games. I know Joe Johnson posted an article on Vikings territory either this morning or yesterday about how, this was him eating his crow because he wasn't happy when we drafted Jefferson. And I'm still not completely sold on the guy, but I think he is what I think his ceiling is now a lot higher than I did before. Before I was like, maybe this guy, turns into like Jarvis Landry, maybe he'll be a good possession slot receiver. And he looked damn good on Sunday. I mean, he definitely plays with some of the skills that you see out of, veteran guys. And just I'm really excited to see him continue rolling. So do you have something to say?
I just wanted to jump in on Jefferson because I've been probably like I said, I've said this. I just said this to Jordan before the show. I said it last week a couple times. Optimistic Jack is no longer a thing. Maybe he'll come back next year. Maybe I'm sure once the draft turns around, Optimist Jack will come back. But right now he's gone. He's completely out of the picture. But I was very excited about that Justin Jefferson pick, and there was a lot I can kind of admit where I was wrong as well. I kind of came out and said, you know what, I think we can get away with our offensive line that we have, with our guards that we have. And that's where I'll kind of eat my words, because I was completely wrong in saying that. The guard position is getting absolutely annihilated, and that's why I think Kirk Cousins is struggling a little bit. So
yeah,
I think it's still just bizarre to me that Josh Klein is a free agent and we haven't given him a call, because he made this offensive line better last year, and I think he could do it again this year. But I will say I was very high on Justin Jefferson, and one of the coolest stats that I saw from last week, it wasn't the it was the 175 yards, 7 catches for his first touchdown that he grittied into the end zone. But the stat that really jumped out to me, I don't have it in front of me, nor do I know exactly what the numbers were, but a very healthy amount of his snaps. Like, it was over, I want to say 85 to 90% of his snaps. This week, the first 2 weeks, he was lining up in the slot for the majority of his snaps. But in week 3, when Justin Jefferson officially broke out for the Minnesota Vikings, the majority of his snaps were out wide. And that jumped off the page to me, because throughout the draft when we were talking about him, I know we both said that we thought he was very talented, but that slot play might limit him. And he showed on Sunday that he's more than capable of playing on the outside as well.
Yeah, he really looked outstanding. He is the reason to be optimistic about the future of this team. Like you said, with the offensive line, was is the key statement here. Big Drew Samia guy, or Samia, however you pronounce his stupid name. I don't want to go back to Elfline, though. I think we know what we have in Elfline. We know what we have in Samia. The odds of an 0-3 team doing anything of note are low. So it's time to, roll some people out there. It's time to, maybe bump Buifin and put Ezra Cleveland at tackle. It's time to
Cleveland.
put in that.
I don't think Cleveland has taken a snap at tackle, so why don't we we're 0-3. What do you have to lose taking Samia out of the game, and you put Cleveland in, put him at guard. If worse comes to worse, you end up. I mean, Reef's playing one of the best seasons of his life so far. Don't quote me on that, but at least for the Vikings, Reef is playing fantastic this year. We're completely getting destroyed on the inside. What do you have to lose right now? Putting Ezra Cleveland at that guard spot. That's where he was playing throughout camp.
And
throw him in there.
Who's the either we drafted him in the 7th round. The guy who went to school with C.J. Ham, I know he's an interior offensive lineman. I can't think of his name. I want to say it's like Kyle something. But Washbone?
I can't remember, but there is – I can't remember. I know who you're talking about. He went to Augustana. He was a center.
Yeah, well, let's throw him in there. I see no issue with throwing him in there and having him and Dakota Dojo move forward. Because it's literally at this point, it is a try and fail. And the worst thing that's going to happen is the offensive line is going to stay basically the same. Maybe those concerns with them not knowing the zone running scheme, it is a little bit more complex than just see guy, hit guy in more of a power scheme. But come on, man. How difficult can it be to be hey, on this play you're going to run to the left and block a linebacker instead of running to the left and blocking a lineman? It has to. I want to see changes. I want to see the Vikings get nuts. If we're going to be bad, let's see. I want to know everything about this team, and I want to make sure that we have I don't want there to be one chance that there is a hidden gem on this roster that we're not playing because, he's only been in the system for a year, or not even a year, so we don't want to put him in yet. I want to see the Vikings get weird. I want to see us go nuts because, honestly, 0-16, 0-13-3, I just want to see this. I just want to see what we have on this team, and I'd love to see it work out. I'd also kind of love to see it not work out because I really like this quarterback class. But, I don't know. I'm just ready for the Vikings to get weird, man. Back to the Texans. Key to the victory for me in that game is going to be Justin Jefferson, I think. They're going to pay Thielen a lot of attention. I don't think Jefferson has earned the attention of defensive coordinators. He gets it, but, I don't think he's demanding to be doubled yet in his career. So I think if he can go out there, they're going to, try and do everything they can to stop Cook. Everybody knows the Vikings' game plan to success. Run the ball with Dalvin Cook and throw play action. So I think Justin Jefferson is going to need to step up and really this week establish himself as the number 2. I could see him going off. I would say 6 or 7 catches again, maybe over 100 yards again. I'd love to see him find the end zone. I'd love to see the guy dance again. And hopefully he does a new cool young person dance that I don't know. So, I'm excited to see what the Vikings are going to do. That's kind of my quick breakdown of the game is just Jefferson's going to need to have a good game, and the Texans, they want to run the ball. They traded away the best wide receiver in the NFL for a running back that hasn't been good in 3 years. They clearly want to run the ball, and they see David Johnson as a good value to run the ball with. So we just have to here's my hot take of the week. We have to stop them at what they want to do, and we have to do the things that we want to do. So
if only Jack, it was that easy, man.
Right, if it was that easy, everybody would be 16-0, 0-16. But Jack, what are you looking for in this game? What's a matchup that you're excited about? And just kind of go into it a little bit.
Yeah, there's a few of them actually, and one you did take as well. I'm really excited to see. No, you're all good. I'm excited to watch either Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen up against Vernon Hargreaves. He was a guy he was one of those corners out of college that everyone was super high on. Kind of had his ups and downs throughout his NFL career so far. So I'm just excited to watch that matchup. I think he was just so talented coming out of the University of Florida. So it could be an SEC battle a little bit. I think Hargreaves is a little bit before Jefferson's time. Don't quote me on that, but I think those SEC schools are such a different breed, and it's just always more competitive. When you get to that NFL level, I feel like they still Florida and LSU do not like each other by any means. So I think it could just be a little bit of an incentive for each of them to go up against each other. So that's kind of a fun matchup that I'm ready for. And I was talking to my dad as well after the game last week, and basically said he told me it's time that we abolish the Tom Day offensive line appreciation
Oh, no.
because there is nothing to appreciate anymore, which I still don't think is fully true. I think it's that guard position, but another matchup that I'm extremely excited to watch. J.J. Watt, Brian O'Neill. It's going to make a difference this game. J.J. Watt is a difference maker, and Brian O'Neill has been good, but he hasn't been as great as he was last season. So that's another matchup that I'm extremely excited to watch. I love getting the chance. We never really play. We played Houston once every 4 years, so we don't get to see J.J. Watt play very frequently, and he's one of those guys where he's just one of the more gifted pass rushers. He's just a freak at what he does, and he's so good. And I'm excited as I guess I shouldn't say I'm excited to watch him potentially destroy our offensive line, but I'm excited to potentially watch him destroy our offensive line because he's just one of those players where he's fun to watch. And I'm sure Sunday will come around and I'll be saying, you know what, J.J. Watt, I'm really pissed off that I said that. But at the same time, he's just so talented. So excited to watch that matchup as well. And then switching over to Houston's offense, very, very excited to watch Deshaun Watson. I think what he's done and how he kind of got overlooked a little bit in the draft. Granted, he was still a first-round pick, but he went out and he showed that he was a winner at Clemson. And I think it was Dabo Sweeney said, you just passed up on a chance at Michael Jordan in the NBA.
Yep.
And he's so good at football. He's one of the top mobile quarterbacks, if not, obviously you get Lamar Jackson and Mahomes and Russell Wilson, but he's a top 5 quarterback in this league, and he has so much speed out on the perimeter, and the Vikings have had issues with getting burnt out wide, so I'm excited to watch those matchups as well with Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Randall Cobb matched up with whoever we have out there. If it's Holton Hill, I'm going to be a little bit scared because I don't think he has the speed to keep up with some of these guys. I know Cameron Dantzler kind of dropped to that third round pick because of his 40 time at the combine. But yeah, I'm excited to see if we can keep up with their shiftier wide receivers. And I agree with you that I think they're going to try and establish that run early, and just another week of trying to bear with the Vikings and their defensive line, their front seven struggling without having Anthony Barr, without having a true defensive tackle that can plug up that defensive line, and Michael Pierce, or if you want to go back to last year, and Linval Joseph. It's going to be a battle of two teams that are 0-3, and I honestly don't know if there's ever been a matchup between two 0-3 teams that were supposed to be as good as both of these teams were supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting dynamic of this game that I hadn't even actually thought about. Of like, yeah, Houston. So I predicted Houston was going to take a big dip because I thought DeAndre Hopkins made that offense. I'm a big DeAndre Hopkins stan. Like he just blows my mind, man. But anyway, both of these teams, the Vikings, even though they lost a lot of talent, and it felt like everyone who watches this team and covers this team was like, yeah, the Vikings are probably going to have a down year. Like, we still have a lot of talent, but we lost a lot. We're really young in a lot of spots. And, now we don't have Michael Pierce. So, stopping the run just got a lot more difficult. But it felt like the national media was like putting us in the top 5 of every power rankings you saw. And the Texans were right up there with us. So, I'm excited to watch the game, win, lose, or draw. Gonna love the Vikings, and if we win, hey, we're 1-3. If we lose, one step closer, just one step closer to that elusive franchise quarterback that we haven't had since Fran Tarkenton. Is that the last one that we'll go with? Maybe Teddy, but Teddy is no Trevor Lawrence. Let's be honest. So,
yeah.
Moving on. Past the Texans game, but still talking about this week in the NFL, I want to go ahead. Jack, do you want me to go first with my little segment, and then I can give you some time to think about yours, or do you want to start us off?
Yeah, you can start us.
All right, give me 1 second, because honestly, not prepared and didn't have my betting lines pulled up. But so we're gonna start throwing a little bit of some segments into the show where I'm gonna talk about a 3-team underdog parlay that I like for the week. Just to pick it straight up, and it's one of those things where $10 might win you $200. But you obviously need 3 teams that are underdogs to win. And then Jack's going to give you some fantasy football advice for, I believe, more like daily fantasy football, not necessarily year-long, because with year-longs, you kind of don't need advice at this point. Like, you've drafted your team, you know who your superstars are. You're probably not finding a guy that's going to win you or lose you a bunch of games unless you're in a super deep league. But, we'll pass the point of, like, surprising breakout superstars. So, looking at the lines this week, and then also pulling up my notes really quick because I have this written down. I think that maybe my favorite underdog bet of the week is New England at Kansas City. I don't understand why the line is 7 points on that game, and it just doesn't make sense to me. So New England going into Kansas City, I truly think they could beat the Chiefs. The defense is like leading the league in takeaways. They're very good at running the ball. I think they're the best team in the league. Tennessee showed last year that to beat Kansas City, and Indianapolis last year, they showed like, hey, to beat Kansas City, you just got to run the ball and not let them have the ball a whole bunch. So I think New England in that game would be a good one. I think Philadelphia going up against San Francisco. San Francisco for a while didn't look great against the Giants, and I think the Giants are the second worst team in football, second only to the Jets. So I think Philadelphia is due to kind of have a game, especially Carson Wentz is taking a lot of heat. I don't like Carson Wentz. I think he's the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. But, I think that this is the week where he kind of gets some of his weapons together, and I think they could upset San Francisco. And then, sorry, give me 1 second. Chicago being a dog to the Colts at home. I like that. I like that game a lot. I don't understand why Chicago's the dog there. I think that last week they had a big comeback win. They're going to be stouting Nick Foles, Super Bowl champion. They finally got Mitchell Trubisky gone. Chicago might be dangerous now that they have gotten rid of their worst football player on their team. Oh, they've benched him. So those are my 3 games this week that I'm looking at. All of them I truly think could just win straight up. I don't even think you need points. And then talking about the Vikings game, of course, because why would we be doing this show without the Vikings game? Where is the Vikings game? I don't think the Vikings game is even on here. You know what? I bet they took it off because of
they did do that.
COVID.
I think I heard about that.
Because there were talks. I know that they're thinking about like postponing the Titans game until Monday or Tuesday. So the Vikings game isn't on here, and I actually don't have the line written down, but don't bet this game. This game is a game between two teams that have a lot of potential. Both teams are hungry for their first win. It's not a good game to gamble on this week. I do think it will be relatively high scoring. So I would probably bet the over on it, like no matter what it was. And yeah, that's kind of my, my little thing though. I'm sure the spread is like -3 or -2 in Houston's favor just because they're the home team. But well, I'll have to put out a tweet or something whenever the line goes back up because the damn COVID is taking over this season. But Jack, let's talk a little fantasy football and then let's do some game balls and let's get out of here. Who do you got for us this week in daily?
I keep bumping my mic with my hat, so I apologize that. But yeah, for a couple daily fantasy options, I haven't done a ton of research. It's kind of where I said this last week too, I think, where I wake up and completely make a Sunday out of it. And I actually cash, not really by that much. I think I like doubled up my money and only won like $17 in college football. If you enjoy DraftKings, college football is one of the most enjoyable experiences that I've had when playing DraftKings, just because it's a reason to completely just sit on your couch for the entire Saturday and not get up. So if you're looking for it, it's difficult because there's so many players across the board, but there's so many like high scoring games when you have like Big 12 schools. You have Texas going up and walking off. That was a fantastic game to watch. But there are some plays that I've just kind of been looking up some research and just looking at the DraftKings prices. And I want to start out, there's a DraftKings Nation writer that I just read some of his stuff here his name's Garion Thorne. And it was just looking through some prices as well. And they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire at $6,400, which is still, it's kind of that median price. It's not like the top tier. Maybe not even that second tier running backs. And I would suggest any time that you can get a player that is not value decreased, but his price has decreased that much because obviously they're playing a tough defensive front in New England. But $6,400 and you can touch that Kansas City offense. I love that because anytime you can touch that Kansas City offense, I think that's a good thing, and I think it's really tough. Be tough to stack that game just because I think the Chiefs roster as a whole, they just bump up those prices because why wouldn't you? They are probably the best offense in all of football. But another one that I like, which sucks for me because I have Devontae Adams, I think, in 2 or 3 of my fantasy leagues, and I'm still not sure if he's going to play. But that's another game that I could completely see being a shootout is Green Bay and Atlanta on Monday Night Football. If you're one of those people that enjoy the stress of waiting to have your fantasy players go until Monday night. I don't know if he's going to be on many rosters. He is going to be on many rosters. I don't know if he's going to be on the waivers in many leagues just because we have seen Devontae Adams not play last week. But Allen Lazard is somebody that I would be completely comfortable playing this week. I think they are going to absolutely torch that Atlanta secondary. So yeah, anywhere you can touch that Packers roster, I think they're gonna have their way with another 0-3 team, and then bringing it back to the Vikings Texans game. There are some legitimate fantasy options in this as well. I think Justin Jefferson proved last week that he can be a legitimate fantasy option. Obviously, a couple weeks before that were a different story, but I think he's going to be worked into this offense in a more primary role moving forward. I think he has kind of solidified himself as that wide receiver too, and I think BC Johnson had an absurdly amount of low. I don't know how I was trying to say that, but he did not get on the field very many times last week, and I think that's a sign in the coaching staff potentially saying, hey, you know what, this Jefferson kid is a star, and let's get the ball in his hands more frequently. So I think Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, the usual suspects, Delvin Cook, and then I think you can switch over to that other side, and I think you could feel comfortable. I know Randall Cobb is a free agent in one of my leagues, and that's like an 18 – you have 18 roster spots, and there's 12 teams, so it's really one of the more rough waiver wires that you can see out there, and he's available in that league. So I would imagine he's available in many leagues, and he's going to be cheap. I might sneeze, sorry.
Bless you.
I don't know if there's another one coming. Wow, that's how
grade A content.
That is how my week has gone right there. So I apologize for that, but yeah, Randall Cobb is another one just with our secondary being as banged up as it is. I think he's more dominant out of the slot, so he could get matched up with a guy like Jeff Gladney. I don't think the injury report said Mike Hughes would not have practiced today, so I'm not overly confident in him getting on the field with that lingering neck issue. So if he is able to go, it's going to be either Mike Hughes, who hasn't really been the best corner, obviously, this year thus far, or it's going to be the rookie and Jeff Gladney getting his second career start. So I think you can touch that Texans offense as well, and I think it's going to come down to if this game ends up being like a 10-9 game, I'm going to come out and say I was completely wrong, but I really feel like this Vikings-Texans game is going to be a shootout as well, so I think you can touch some spots on that. But I think there's obviously the usual suspects as well, Russell Wilson stack against Miami, but I think you could bring that stack back. I think there's a legitimate fantasy value this week in a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick as well, because they're going to be down that entire game. I think the Seattle Seahawks have a very legitimate chance at being the representative out of the NFC in the Super Bowl. I think Russell Wilson has proved that he deserves, so we should get this guy some MVP votes because he's playing out of this world football, and he's been a star in this league for how long now, and he hasn't really gotten granted, Seattle hasn't really given him the chance to go out and show how good he is because they've always wanted to be a run-first team, but Russell Wilson, I think, is a 1A, 1B with Patrick Mahomes in this league. I think it's their world, and the rest of us are just living in it when it comes to the NFL, and we saw that on Monday Night Football as well with the Chiefs completely dominating the Ravens. So that is kind of the end of my fantasy rant. I did not do as much research as I probably should have for it because I was busy getting my heart completely ripped out of my chest by a baseball team today with their 18th consecutive playoff loss. But yeah, let us know. Tweet us if you decide to play any of those players and they go off, or if I was completely wrong, feel free to attack me on Twitter. I'm down right now in the dumps. You might as well just pile it on and be like, you know what? You suck at fantasy. Your Minnesota sports teams suck, and you're not good at anything you do. So feel free to come at me, and but if you win some money, also feel free to try to boost my ego, and maybe we'll get a little bit of optimistic Jack returning next week.
At this point, it's went from like optimistic Jack to depressed Jack to
just get me to the draft.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we both need right now. Is like I don't know why, but I'm looking back on the draft with like such nostalgia at this point. It's just like, get me back there, man. I want to do some mock drafts and like forget about football and just it's why I think we both love draft season because it's so full of hope. But we'll start to run a little bit long because we talked about cats and dogs and sneezing and all this. So let's go ahead. Let's try and do game balls. Also, I have to throw in my mandated, if you do gamble responsibly. If you have a gambling addiction, contact your local helpline because, it's not cool to gamble if you're addicted to it. It's fun if you can do it safely. But anyway, game balls, I believe I have offense this week and you have defense. So I'm going to go ahead on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm double dipping. I'm doing it again. Justin Jefferson's winning the game ball this week. He's going to go for 120 yards, I think. I think this is like – I think they were holding him back in week 1 and 2, and it might be a combination of like the old style of football of like you have to own your way onto the field. It could be a combination of that. They wanted to get him a preseason, let him take some NFL hits before they just threw him into the – I don't care why they left him out of there. He blew up last week, and I think he is poised to blow up again. So give me Justin Jefferson, 2 touchdowns, huge game. I think he's poised for it. And with him having a huge day, I'm sure Dalvin will benefit from that as well. But I'm going with Justin Jefferson. I'm going to double dip. I think you said him last week. So yeah, you're up.
Yeah, I think the offensive side is just a lot easier because I think it's going to be shootout after shootout with how poorly our defense has been. And I think it's going to be fun trying to guess who's going to win the defensive ball week in and week out because I think you can pick the usual suspects as well of a Dalvin Cook or Adam Thielen to go off as well. But switched over to the defensive side of the ball, we haven't really had as strong of a performance. Obviously, Harrison Smith had a pick last week, but I am going to stick with the rookie as well. I from what he's posted on Instagram, it sounds like he's going to play. It sounds like he's jacked up to get back on this field. I'm going to give my defensive ball to Cameron Dantzler and predict that he gets a pick in this game because I think if we can potentially get some pressure to Deshaun Watson and rush him a little bit. I know these receivers are fast and they could do some damage to us, but I think at some point this season we're going to see it click for these younger guys. You're going to see it with Gladney. I think you're going to see it with Dantzler. I think it might come a little bit quicker with Dantzler. It seems as if the coaching staff trusts him a little bit more. Obviously, he was in the starting lineup against Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay in his first ever career game, which was obviously kind of drew the short end of the stick. That's not a game where I would want to go out and start as a corner for my first game, but I'm just going to be bold and I'm going to come out. I'm not going to pick Harrison Smith or Ngakoue or Eric Kendricks. I'm going to give it to Cameron Dantzler and see what he can go out and do if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, I'll stick with it and I'll give it to Jeff Gladney. I think one of these corners are going to step up sooner rather than later, and this team's going to have a lot to look forward to in 2021.
Yeah, I agree with you. And talking about that 2021, actually, let's do score predictions and then we can talk about this. I've got the Vikings' first win of the season in a I didn't really think about the score too hard. I'm going to go 38-35 shootout. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think either team is going to blow each other out. But give me the Vikings getting their first win. I trusted Houston a little bit too much to begin the season because I did think that Deshaun Watson would make up for this offense. He really hasn't. You can't trade a guy like Nuke Hopkins and then expect to just replace him with Randall Cobb. You have to either go draft somebody, or you have to just keep Nuke Hopkins in the building. So give me the Vikings punishing Bill O'Brien even further, and hopefully costing him his job, because he is maybe the dumbest GM in the league.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think I can. It's tough for me. I think it's going to be a close game, but unfortunately, I think the Texans come out on top. And until I see a little bit more of a better performance from this defense, it's going to be really hard for me to predict a win. I do think it's going to be more of a shootout. I don't know if I'm ready to say that they're each going to be above 35 points, but I do agree with you. It's going to be a higher scoring game, and I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to take the Texans 31-28. The Texans are 0-3. The Vikings are 0-3. And we say, you know what? Well, we had a tough schedule to start the year off with Green Bay and then Tennessee Titans, and the Colts are no pushover either. But I don't know if there's been a more brutal start to a season than what the Texans have had to endure for their first 3 weeks. Especially, like you said, you lose a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, and then you open up to the Super Bowl champions in Kansas City against the Chiefs. And then you play against the Baltimore Ravens, and then you play Pittsburgh. That is a brutal stretch of games for the Texans, and I still think, there are two teams that have a lot of talent on their roster that just haven't performed up to the level of expectations, but I don't feel very optimistic about the Vikings going down to Houston, essentially their first road game on a really, really extremely short week because they haven't even practiced yet. I don't like their chances. I'm taking the Texans 31-28.
All right. Well, optimistic Jack is dead. So, I agree with you. I do think, and honestly, something that I kind of didn't factor in here was the fact that we had the COVID-shortened week. I think that from what I've heard, this game is still being planned for Sunday. I don't think they're going to move this one, especially with the Vikings all testing negative. So it's just kind of, it's going to be tough to not have, 2 or 3 days of practice in the middle of the week, whenever we're scheming for a guy like Deshaun Watson. But it is what it is. And I just wanted to say about looking towards next year, I'll give like a little optimistic hoorah thing before I let you get us out of here. The Vikings next season, we have a first round draft pick. We get Michael Pierce back, and I think the secondary is in place for years to come. And I think that kind of shows things up to where we can, if we're picking, realistically, I'm going to say we will be picking either right outside the top 10 or right inside the top 10. I do not think this is a team that's going to have the number 1 overall pick when the Jets and the Giants exist. But we could take maybe the best guard in the class at, the number 9 spot, and it could, he could really show up the offensive line, and then all of a sudden you're looking at maybe having like Riley Reif be at left guard, a rookie be at right guard, the Grim Reacher at center, and then Cleveland and O'Neal at tackle. We could go from really bad O-line to really good O-line in the matter of, one draft pick. So, there's a lot to look forward to with this team going into 2021, but we still have an entire, 13 weeks of football left to be played this year. I'm not ready to just completely, trash on the Vikings and say they're god-awful. We just lost a very close game to a team that almost went to the Super Bowl last year, and we also played against a team that was in the NFC Championship game last year. And then we got embarrassed by the Colts, but that's a different story. That one just kind of hurt in my soul. But I think I'm excited for the rest of the year. I want to see what the youth looks like on this team. And God, do I want Michael Pierce back so we can stop the run just a little bit. But Jack, I'll let you get us out of here. We've went very long tonight, and that's partially my fault. Do you want to tell the people about the sponsor as well?
Yes, I will do that. If you are listening, make sure you follow us on Twitter at LTB Vikings. Follow myself at Jack_H_day, and you can follow Jordan at JHawthorne16. Also, if you're a dude or if you're a girl looking to get a cool gift for your boyfriend or husband, go over to manscaped.com. Check out they have some awesome stuff, and they sent us some stuff that we've been trying out as well, and it is amazing. And we can get you a 20% discount if you use the code LOADTHEBOX. So head over there, check out some of their stuff, and use that code for 20% off. Kind of bouncing off what you said, I do think that the Vikings, they have a lot of talent on this team, and I'm not going to stop watching. Even if they go 0-16, I'm going to watch every single game. That's what it's like being a Minnesota sports fan. We learned that today with the Twins. We've seen struggles with the Vikings. We've seen the Timberwolves be essentially irrelevant, and then there's the Wild, who got bounced first round in the playoffs this year as well. So there's not a lot of optimism left in the Minnesota sporting world, but that's why we keep coming back, because we love our teams. We have that passion. That's why it's one of the greater states for being a fan, because although it sucks, they always keep coming back. And I agree with you. I think that there's a good chance that the Vikings, they could piece a couple games together here and potentially go on a little bit of a run. And if they could somehow get to 2-4, 3-3 to start out the season, then they're essentially right back in the swing for a potential 6 or 7 seed in the playoffs. So as much as I don't see that happening, I can agree with you, and I very much could see the Vikings, like you said, they just went out and put up 30 points. If these young cornerbacks, if they start to get it a little bit faster and we somehow figure out a way to stop the run a little bit more, I think this team, we haven't even brought up Danielle Hunter, which I think it was announced this week that it doesn't sound like he's going to make the return this week, which he was eligible to do so, but sounds like that they're going to play it safe, which I'm completely okay with, especially when you're sitting at 0-3. So make sure to tune in the game on Sunday. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. I don't know if there's going to be a ton of defense played, but we have nothing else to do at this point, so we got to wait till Gophers football comes back. Big Ten returns in October, then we'll have something to be optimistic about. But, hey, maybe at that point the Vikings have strung a couple wins together and they're right back in the swing of things. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. But as always, I'm going to leave you with this. Skol as always.